Hey, good morning, folks. It is Monday morning. It's kind of a dreary one out there, but it is June 1st and the summer has begun. It's beginning on a cloudy note, but hey, that's New England for you. Maybe in a couple hours it'll be 70 degrees and it'll be fine. Um, Today I'm going over the albums that have inspired me through my journey through music, through playing music, through loving music and listening to it, to seeing live bands. And this one, I've had the album, but I just got this one not too long ago. I seen it down at Newbury Comics, and this is Madman Across the Water by Elton John. And this was a great album. This was a limited edition, splatted colored vinyl, and I just like that. And I'm like, there's no cover to it, there's no nothing, it's just the album, and this is what it looks like. And I dig that. And it's got all the songs on it on the back here. And just, this was one of those early albums from Elton that I always dug. Just a fantastic record. And the album's title song was initially set to be released on John's previous album, and that was Tumbleweed Connection, and it was going to feature Mick Ronson on guitar. But that version was set aside, and the song was re-recorded for this album with Johnson on guitar. Forget his first name. It starts with D. Johnson, I believe it is. The earlier version was included on the remastered Tumbleweed Connection compact disc that came out a few years ago. And back in the 70s, when people were saying that Madman Across the Water was about Richard Nixon, it kind of was genius that people were thinking about that, and that Elton John had people believe in that. But I don't think that it was, and if it was, maybe it had some references towards it, but I never heard anything solid on that. And the original album's artwork was embroidered over 2 weeks by Janice Larkham, and wife of the album and director David Larkham. Sorry, the album art and director David Larkham. And she used the back of an old Levi's jacket, and the original was gifted to Elton John. And there was no initial run of expensive album covers with similar embroidery, nor in embossed versions. It was just flat printed, and though it did include a lavish booklet, Janice chose to credit herself as Yanis on the album work. And this album, to me, I remember listening to this back in the days up at my brother Joe's place up in Cambridge, and it's just Elton's first albums. My personal up to Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, and then there was spa stuff, Philadelphia Freedom, from Captain Fantastic. Someone saved my life tonight, and that's a great song. That's off of Captain Fantastic, and those he's always been consistent, and that's why he's still popular today. And my buddy Eddie went to go see him a couple of years ago, went on that last tour that he did up at Foxborough with his family, and he said he loved those first 5 albums too, but he said he was really good. He sounded good. He played a lot of great songs, and it wasn't just all the hits. He played some deep tracks too. And I seen Elton way back. I seen him at the Worcester Centrum, and I remember I went with my buddy Danny and my other buddy Joe, and it was pretty high times back then. And I remember Elton come out with this like lame gold, like that. He was just shining, and it was like a gold thing with all like sequins, and it was wild. It was pretty wild to see. And but he was always like that. He was always over the top with the sunglasses and the clothes and stuff like that. But he played a great show that night. It really was. It was a fantastic show. A lot of the old stuff that we grew up with and loved, Rocket Man, Your Song, stuff like that. That was really, really, really good. You know, I loved that music. You know, I really did. And so with this album, this was his fourth album, and it was released on November 5th, 1971. And the album was his third album to be released in 1971, and that's how it was back then. You look at groups like Led Zeppelin and stuff; they were putting out, their 1969, 68 when they were switching over to be Led Zeppelin, 69 to like 75. Really 73 was like Zeppelin's prime, but they were putting albums out like that a couple of years. And so this wasn't, really, surprising that bands did this. And Elton did this too. And, it was almost like his first progressive rock album, which progressive rock was huge at that time. ELP, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Yes, the Moody Blues, Jethro Tull. So this was considered back then. Me, I don't know now listening to it again. Is that progressive rock? Well, I don't know. That's a matter of opinion. But it contained 9 tracks, and each composed and performed by John, and the lyrics were written by Bernie Taupin. And Yes, keyboardist, speaking of that progressive element, Rick Wakeman plays Hammond organ on 2 songs. And, Leave On was a big single from the album. Tiny Dancer, which is still to this day my favorite song by him. There's just a vibe about that song. When I hear it, it just like brings me back to the 1970s, and, when they were all on the bus on Almost Famous, in that movie Almost Famous, about Cameron Crowe, when they were all singing it on the bus, when they were all like just crashing, that was just an epic moment. I loved that movie, and I loved that scene, and I loved that song, and it went platinum in December. And the album included, it was definitely included on the 101 albums you must hear in your lifetime. And I think that's a fair assessment. There are albums out there that if you haven't heard them, maybe if you're my age, you've heard a lot of these albums. But there's some albums that people haven't heard, and this is a must. If you want to be introduced to Elton John, yeah, you can get the greatest hits, which is a fantastic album. That first one with him on there with the cane and dressed in white, that's a lot of his early hits, and that's a great introduction. But if you want to get a little deeper into Elton John, this album and Goodbye Yellow Brick Road and Tumbleweed Connection, those are fantastic albums. And, even Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy, that was a little bit later into the 70s, but still a great, great album. And, just when I hear this one, I heard it, I played it this morning. I was like, up early, and I just had it on, soft, because I didn't want to wake Carol up. But, I can feel that vibe again. There's certain albums that when you put them on, it takes you back to a place and a time of our lives. And, and I'm sure, the kids now, when they put on an album from the 90s or even the early 2000s or whatever, it brings them back to when they were young. And this album does that for me, I was just a kid in 1971, so really, I was like literally a kid. But Elton John's music was played a lot in my house. A lot of music was, but a lot of his music was played. My sister Lorraine loved him. My brother Joe loved those early albums, so I was introduced to him, for me, at his best period. And this album and, those other ones I mentioned just have stayed with me. And, I don't listen to him much of what he does now. I'll hear stuff on the radio, um, and some of it's good. But, you know, these albums back in the day, I can still put these on, and it opens my mind, and it opens my heart, and it brings me back to that feeling that I first had when I first heard them. And that's what's good, if you don't play them a lot, and you pick them up, I got a big album collection, and I just reach in and pull it out and throw it on the turntable. I bought myself a nice turntable, so I got the vinyl again, and that's why I'm buying this stuff again. It's not cheap, but it's really, I like them. I don't have to buy, like, I've had tons of albums, and I don't have to buy them like I once did, and have them all. Like, I got like almost all the Kinks albums, all the Stones albums, all Led Zeppelin albums, which there was only, 10 or whatever it is. But, can't even get this thing back in the sleeves, so I'll have to wait on that. But yeah, there's just certain albums that touch the heart, and this is one of them. And so I wanted to showcase this. When basses D Murray, I made that mistake. The D Murray was the bassist. I'm sorry, and it's been so long since I've known these guys. I knew them like this when I was a kid. But Nigel Olson's on drums, and it was Davy Johnson that played guitar. And if I did say him, well, then, I forget. I'm getting old. But anyways, I hope that you get to hear this album. I hope that, if you never heard it, stream it or whatever. And, maybe if you listen to Elton John, you're like, Elton John, he's nothing but a dinosaur. It's like, he puts out soundtracks to movies and stuff. Go back in his catalog. Listen to that first album, Tumbleweed Connection. This one, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. They're classics. And they're still worth the penny I paid, the money I paid to get them, because they're not only, it's not only music, it's the music that has been a part of my life. And that's why I'm showcasing these albums. So listen, I wish you all a great day. I hope you have a wonderful June. I hope it brings some, good times for us. It's the start of summer, and I really do hope that, we stay healthy, we stay happy, and we just enjoy the moment, enjoy the day, because that's all we got. We just got today. So listen, enjoy your day. Keep on listening to the music. Thank you for listening, and be well all.